Hello, YouTube. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. My name is Kristen, and today I wanted to do a little book collection tour. I'm currently moving, and so all of my books are in a box. I don't necessarily have a large collection, but I decided it might be fun to go through them all. Do some tracing, some tapping, some page flipping, and see how it turns out. I am far from a YouTube professional, but I enjoy ASMR videos. So I figured I would dabble myself. I do have a nice little candle to light. My sister gave me this candle. It has a really nice, sort of a citrusy smell, but in a very sweet way, like Sugar Petals makes it sound. It's sort of it's a very floral, citrusy scent. As my account name suggests, content that is 420 friendly is what is typically on this channel, but I'm currently pregnant, so we won't be partaking, but we can enjoy some lighter sounds still. See if I don't burn my nails off. I might have to do this very carefully. Success. Nice. I don't know how much you can hear, but there's birds chirping outside, and it does not appear to be a quiet day out there, so we will just roll right through this. Let's go. Let's start with a classic. Les Miserables. This book is very beat up because I read it in high school. So I was toting it around with me. a little bit of water damage. Anyway. Les Miserables. This book is by Victor Hugo. The classic French author. This is an absolute must read. Especially if you're a fan of the musical or the movie. It's even better. Alright. I'm going to try not to spend too much time on any one book. I won't be able to give you very good summaries or motifs because a lot of them I haven't read in a long time. This was a book I had to purchase for college. It's called High Tide. On Main Street by John Englander. Rising sea level and the coming coastal crisis. Yikes. It's about exactly what it sounds like. Not exactly a happy theme, but I went to college in Louisiana and rising sea levels are a big threat there. So it was very good to learn about. These next few are some Barnes & Noble classics. We have Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. I really can't say much about this book because unfortunately I have not read it. It looks beat up though because it did come from my sister. She must have included a note of other books to read. But until I've gotten through this one, I don't think I can start on anything else. It's a classic. Here's a classic I have read and absolutely adore. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This is one that is a classic for a reason. It's about love and loss. It's one of those books that was written so long ago. It can be hard to get into the language of it, but when you do, you really get a lot from it. Another classic, we have The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, an American classic. The Scarlet Letter. These are a couple other ones from school, so I'll run through them together. We have, of course, Plessy versus Ferguson. A must know. Gosh. Absolutely everybody, if you live in America, even if you don't. A must know case. This book is written by William Hull Hoffer. It's a really great book that sort of gives you an insight into the setup of Plessy v. Ferguson and sort of what this case meant for the country following. In a similar class, another Louisiana history class, I had to read Inside the Carnival, Unmasking Louisiana Politics by Wayne Parent. Can't exactly say I recommend this book, but if you live in Louisiana and you're unfamiliar with Louisiana's political history, go for it. A lot of these books are quite beaten up, but I almost like books better that way, you know, when they're not all fresh, when you can tell they've had some history. This is Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls. little pups. And the boy with the lantern. Billy, old Dan, and little Anne. I'm not sure which one is supposed to be which. This book smells like it has history. This came from my parents' house when I moved out, so I hope you can't hear my cat meowing. I think this book was printed in the 1980s. You can really tell how old it is just by the yellowing of the pages. Such a good book, though. This is one that you will cry at the end. This is a book called It Can't Happen Here by Sinclair Lewis. This is another book that I had to read in history class, but it's actually a very interesting read. It's set in the era of sort of communism and my cat's going crazy. Anyway, the 1960s. War Horse. This is a scholastic book and it is old. Who's this by? Michael Morpurgo? I don't know how you even say his name. Such a touching story. You have to read this book. You can watch the movie as well. It's set in World War I, I believe. It's one of those touching books where the story of an animal and the human connection being so strong. It's very touching. War Horse. This is a really interesting book called $2 a Day. Living on Almost Nothing in America. By Catherine J. Eden and Luke Schaefer. I just saw that it says rental textbook on the back. I wonder if this was one I was supposed to return and never did. That would be funny. Anyway, the quote on the front says, "A remarkable book that could very well change the way we think about poverty in the United States." And it did for me. It goes in depth from the perspective of this sociologist, Catherine Eden. She does case studies about families who live with income of under $2 a day in America. We commonly think about that only happening in third world countries, but this book opens your eyes to the fact that it's a lot more common in the United States than we think. It has one of those textured covers that sounds so interesting. I think I was definitely supposed to return this. Too bad. Now we're getting into some that more people might know. Confess by Colleen Hoover. This was an interesting enough read. It's a nice, like, quick and easy, like, beach read type book. Excuse me while I dig around in this box a little bit. Now here's an interesting one. Savage Appetites by Rachel Monroe. Four true crime stories of women, crime, and obsession. This was another book I read for a book club, actually. It's very interesting. It delves into the question of why women tend to be so interested in true crime. It's not something a lot of men get really in depth into. And Rachel Monroe sort of wants to know why. I think it's a question worth asking. I will tell you, she doesn't necessarily come to a conclusion. She has some theories, but it's an open-ended question. Flammable by Javier Ayero and Deborah Alejandra Suistu. This book flammable. Environmental suffering in an Argentine shantytown. It describes exactly that. It's also an in-depth case study. These are environmental sociologists, and they go and they live in a shantytown in Argentina. I had to read this book for an environmental sociology class. It was very interesting. I like the sound of that cup. We have yet another one that people are probably familiar with. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Taylor Jenkins Reid. Don't hate me for this opinion. I actually never fully made it through this book because I did not find it intriguing enough. Maybe I didn't get far along enough, but I got pretty far along into it and it just couldn't keep me latched. But I bought it because everyone had such high opinions of it. Maybe I'll try it again someday. On the Road by Jack Kerouac. This is another classic. Sort of I don't know, this book sort of gives me similar vibes as Great Gatsby in a very different way. But it almost shares the same motifs of self-exploration and, you know, it also sort of runs in the same era, the same time period. Anyway, it's a good book. This one I do have to touch on. Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. This is a very interesting book written by a lawyer who touches on how just the American justice system really is, especially for people of color, people on death row. Good one. It's a really insightful read. I think you'll learn a lot if you haven't read books in that arena before. I'm trying to move through the pregnancy books because I don't think anyone ever really wants to hear about those. These are the final few books I'll go through. Only because they're favorites of mine. If you're a fan of, I guess, contemporary sort of teenage romance style of books, you have to read this series. A Court of Thorns and Roses. I believe this is the first book, followed by A Court of Mist and Fury. I'm about to drop the things in my lap. These books are so good, y'all. By Sarah J. Maas. They also sound phenomenal. Oops. I have more books, but I'm going to let these be the last ones that I talk to you about. I've kept you for long enough. I hope you enjoyed the book sounds. I hope the audio quality was decent enough and my cat wasn't too annoying. If you're watching this to focus, get work done, and I hope you keep getting a lot done. If you're watching this to go to sleep, then good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Sleep well.